Howdy, my name is Michael Demkovic. I am an associate professor in the Department of Materials Science and Engineering at Texas A&M University. I'm also the graduate program director for the department. Today, I'd like to tell you about how you should go about finding a thesis advisor. So the topics that I will cover in this presentation are briefly listed in this slide, and I'll go over each one in turn. The first one is, who needs a thesis advisor? So in short, you need a thesis advisor if the degree you're pursuing involves preparing a thesis. So PhD students need thesis advisors, and Master of Science students who have selected the thesis option also need a thesis advisor. If you are a Master of Engineering student or a Master of Science student pursuing the non-thesis option, then you do not need a thesis advisor and you can safely ignore the rest of this presentation. So briefly, PhD students, your thesis advisor is the person who guides you through the process of your research and towards your PhD thesis and towards your thesis defense. That person is going to appoint you as a research assistant or an RA. That position, the RA position, provides you with full payment for your tuition fees, and it gives you a stipend. In return, you work in your thesis advisor's research lab. So in essence, the thesis advisor is your boss and also your mentor. Because a PhD usually takes about 5 years to complete, it is very important to choose your advisor very carefully, because that's a person that you are going to spend 5 years with working towards your degree. So take your time, do your due diligence, make sure that you are happy with your choice. For the Master of Science, again, your thesis advisor is somebody who guides you towards your MS thesis and also your thesis defense. The difference is that most MS students are self-supported, which means that they pay their own way, they pay their own tuition and fees. They do not typically receive stipend support. So in that sense, the thesis advisor is not your boss. However, they are still your mentor. Although your thesis advisor is not going to necessarily support you with an RA, they will provide you with equipment and any materials that you might need to actually carry out the work, right? So access to facilities, access to software, any of the equipment that you need to carry out your research in support of your thesis. It is up to the advisor, up to the thesis advisor if they want to provide you with RAs. Some faculty members do support their MS students with RAs, but again, as I mentioned, most of them do not. The important thing to agree on whenever you're looking for a thesis advisor for your MS thesis is to come to agreement on a project that can be realistically completed within a year or two, which is the typical time span of an MS degree. So now that you know that you need to look for a thesis advisor, what should you look for in a thesis advisor? So there are a number of different things to think about. Again, picking an advisor is a very important decision. So you should be sure that you pick somebody with whom you have good communication. So when you have a conversation, do you understand clearly what the person is telling you? Do they communicate in a way that is clear? Similarly, do they understand what you're telling them? So do they listen? Do they hear you? Do they understand, the things that you're trying to tell them? That good communication is going to be essential for a successful relationship for the time of your thesis. Also, do you feel comfortable asking questions, and are the replies helpful? Another thing to think about is whether you have common research interests. So you can start out by looking over the published research of your potential thesis advisor. Look at the papers that they've published. Do they look like papers that you would be interested in reading? Are they papers that you would be interested in writing? So more than likely, in the course of your thesis, you will at some point write a paper. You should have an interest in the kind of work that your potential advisor does. When you hear about the work, do you get excited or do your eyes glaze over? You'll get some impression of that during your conversation with a potential mentor. And another important thing to think about is, what do researchers in his or her lab actually do? So do they perform experiments? Do they analyze data? Do they run computer models? This is going to be your day-to-day experience in pursuit of your thesis. So make sure that you understand what kind of work is involved. It's very important that you and your advisors have aligned expectations. So will you work alone or in a team? Some people prefer to work alone. Some people prefer to work in a team. Either way, it's important that you and your advisor understand each other's preferences in that regard. How often and in what format will you meet? Will it be weekly? Will you be meeting monthly? Is it going to be a remote meeting? Is it going to be a face-to-face meeting? Will it be one-on-one, or will it be in a group? Come to understanding on that. During your research, will you travel to conferences or go on internships, publish papers? How often? How many papers does your advisor expect you to publish? Do you plan to, or does the advisor expect you to collaborate with other groups? And finally, do you expect to receive an RA? As I already mentioned, if you're a PhD student, you absolutely should expect to receive an RA. And in that case, the question becomes, is the funding for your RA secure? If you are an MS student who expects to receive an RA, this is an important thing to come to agreement with on your advisor, because as I said, some advisors offer their MS students RAs, others don't. Finally, do you have good rapport? Do you enjoy being in each other's company? Do you feel comfortable in each other's presence? Do you feel drawn to the person? These are the kinds of factors where I think that it's important that you just trust your gut. If you feel uncomfortable being around somebody, chances are you're not going to enjoy having that person as an advisor. It's also advisable and entirely legitimate, and I would say very much advisable, to contact current and past group members, interview them, look them up online and contact them via email, see what they think. Did they enjoy working with that advisor? What would they recommend to you? So now that you know what to look for in an advisor, how do you go about it? What's the process? So the big picture, I guess, the long and short of it is that the initiative to look for an advisor is on your side. So take initiative. As soon as you find out that you have been accepted to the graduate program, start looking for an advisor. Once you find a person that you would like to work with and you have communicated with each other and you've agreed to work together, don't delay. Commit to working with that person and get started. The longer you take to look for an advisor, the more your progress towards your degree will be delayed. So I very much advise to do your due diligence, be happy with your choice, but as soon as you find somebody that you're happy with and that you want to work with, commit and get started. Regardless whether you are on campus or off campus, you can always begin your search for an advisor by researching the online profiles of our faculty. You'll find them on our department website. Any of our core faculty or affiliated faculty can be your advisor in the material science and engineering department. Once you have selected a group of faculty whose research interests align with yours, I recommend writing emails to all of them. Make the emails brief, formal, professional. Introduce yourself in the email, mention that you are accepted to the program, attach your CV so that your advisor can have an idea of what kind of experience you have, what past experience you bring to the table. And finally, ask whether this potential advisor is interested in discussing potentially working together. Request a meeting. So if you are not on campus or if you can't meet face-to-face, then request a remote meeting. You can do one via Zoom or any other platform that you like. Have a conversation and try to figure out the answers to the questions that I've asked in the previous slide. So do you communicate well? Do you have good rapport? Are your research interests aligned? Most of the time, most years we have campus visits for admitted students. Depending on travel restrictions, that may or may not happen this year. But if it does, then I very much recommend that you contact the graduate office in advance and request to meet in person with the faculty that you are considering as potential advisors. We'll do our best to set up meetings with those faculty for you when you visit. If you arrive on campus and you have not yet found an advisor, you're still looking for one, don't panic, it's okay. Rather, simply invest yourself into the search, devote time to doing it, do your due diligence. Historically speaking, based on prior experience, I would say that you're likely to find an advisor, somebody that you'd like to work with, within about a month or so. The MSEN graduate office will assist you however we can. So please do contact us if you need assistance with finding an advisor. Finally, once you find an advisor, can you switch? In answer to that question, let me begin by saying that switching advisors is not a pleasant experience. It is a disruption in your progress towards your degree, so you may have to start over in your research. If you happen to switch departments while switching advisors, then you may also have to start over in your classwork. In either case, that incurs a loss of time. And it's also a relatively stressful and frustrating experience. So I do not advise entering into a search for an advisor with the expectation that you will switch down the road. So definitely when you're looking for an advisor, try to find somebody that you're comfortable completing your degree with. And the pain of switching is one of the reasons to pick your advisor carefully to begin with. However, I do recognize that in some instances, switching becomes necessary, essential. So if it does come to that, here are some considerations to keep in mind. So first of all, are you switching for a good reason? Are you simply frustrated in the moment over something that will pass? If so, then perhaps you should reconsider. Or, is it something serious that has been ongoing, or that, is a insurmountable impediment to the two of you working together? If the answer is yes, if it really is essential to break off the relationship, then my suggestion is do it as soon as possible. So do not persist in a relationship that isn't working. Switch as soon as you know that it's not working, and involve the graduate office in that. We're here to help you. We will assist you throughout that experience and make sure that you end up in an advising situation which is functional and also pleasant. With that, thank you for your attention. If you have any more questions, please feel free to visit our webpage. The graduate program tab will tell you more about our graduate program. Feel free to contact our graduate advisor, Erin Banza, at the email that I listed here. And finally, if you have any comments that you'd like to write below, we will be glad to try to address them, any questions that you have in the comment section. Okay, good.